Hello, Dippers, and welcome to another volume of Hysteria. As always, you can find us on Spotify and iTunes. Listen to all of our podcasts on those two stations. And follow us on Twitter and Instagram at the Saucy Pod. With me, as always, our St. Louis correspondent, Fletcher Hoig.
Leighton, Kawhi Leonard has been having an all-time postseason, but let's not forget the best postseason we ever saw by an individual performance when LeBron James last year hit 2 game winners, had 8 40-point games, averaged 34, 9, and 9, and set an NBA playoff record for most points before the NBA Finals. Kawhi Leonard's been great, but just never forget how good LeBron is.
So, you tell me that Kawhi might not be MJ's closest comparison ever?
You know, it's wild people say that. I mean, Kobe Bryant is the spitting image of Michael Jordan. Kawhi Leonard, you know, he's got a similar frame and build, but he's so mechanical in his movement where MJ and Kobe were much more fluid. So I don't really see that comparison by Doc Rivers.
Yeah, that is the bold statement it can possibly get.
I think he was just on the recruiting trail early.
Yeah, he might get a tampering charge. He's really feathering that line.
No, he's not Magic Johnson. He's not getting a tampering charge.
I look to Magic Johnson here in a second, but before then, stop the noise.
Humpday, Hoops Hysteria,
a Sauce on the Side production.
Alright, so we'll start off with a little bit of high school basketball news. This is no longer a high school basketball podcast, it used to be, and it's no longer is. However, this week, top prospect RJ Hampton announced that he would go play in New Zealand instead of attending college next year. This is something that I think a lot of people saw coming at some point in time, because all these other avenues for high school players to go make money and professionally against good competition for 1 year and then go into the NBA. This is still groundbreaking though, because like Brandon Jim went to China, he's not going to New Zealand. So Fletcher, what do you make of RJ Hampton, and do you think this will happen more often going forward if the NBA doesn't change its age restrictions?
Yeah, so the NBA's got to look at doing something, you know. This happened not too long ago with Emmanuel Mudiay. He went and played in China as well. The difference is with Mudiay, I think there was some eligibility issues. If you remember, Emmanuel Mudiay and Miles Turner were both committed to go play at SMU under Larry Brown, and issues with eligibility there, you know, recruiting violations. And so Mudiay went to China. The thing is with RJ Hampton, he is academically eligible to go play at any university in the country, and he decided to go play in New Zealand professionally for a year before going to the NBA. You saw this with Darius Baisley last year. He decided to take an internship, a quote-unquote internship with New Balance that paid him $1 million, and he's played some time in the G League as well, getting ready for the NBA draft. RJ Hampton, though, pretty much summed it up. He said, it's my dream to play in the NBA, not college. So I think the NBA is going to figure something out. I think the NCAA definitely, if they care about, you know, the product they're putting out there, is going to have to figure something out as well.
Yeah, and Adam Silver has basically been perfect so far, Commissioner. You have to believe that something will be done here in the next 2 to 3 seasons to make sure the high school players basically don't do this more often, and that might just have to be going straight to the NBA.
Yeah.
All right, and now we're going to some more main news. Daryl Morey, GM of the Rockets, came out today, or didn't come out today, but reported today that he was on the phone, and every player and draft pick the Rockets have is up for sale, as he thinks they need to shake things up to help get past the Warriors. James Harden's probably still untouchable. A lot of people always talk about Chris Paul trades today. Fletcher,
Yep.
Chris Paul is owed $120 million over the next 3 seasons. He's getting older. He's not that great of a scorer anymore. He's getting hurt all the time. There's no actual way he gets traded, right?
Well, excuse me. Tom Thibodeau is no longer, you know, in charge of any NBA team, so it's unlikely that, you know, he does get moved. When he made that deal for Chris Paul, the 4-year, $160 million deal, we both said on the show, man, that's too much to be given an older guy like that. He's getting hurt more and more. He's playing less and less and getting hurt more and more in the regular season and the postseason. That's going to be a tough contract to move. And then on top of that, you know, if James Harden is untouchable, or if he's untouchable, either way, it's going to take a whole lot to move James Harden. I said that the Rockets last year, their championship window was closed. They were bouncing the semifinals this year. This is just Daryl Morey trying to make something to be competitive, and I think the fact that he's willing to move every single piece possible, I think the writing's on the wall for him. Like, hey, we kind of backed ourselves into a corner here. We've got to do something to remain competitive now or in the future at least. And so I think he kind of realizes it too. The championship window's over. Maybe my backcourt's seen better days. Maybe we should, kind of give it a second look at what we're doing here in Houston.
So, so they do have okay pieces to move. They can move Eric Gordon, they can move PJ Tucker, they can move the draft pick, and that can be good draft picks. Other than Chris Paul, what of the main pieces do you think will be moved this summer?
Well, if you remember last summer, there was some contract negotiation concerns and issues with Clint Capella. He could be a guy that gets moved. You could look at them moving Clint Capella and then trying to go after a guy like Brook Lopez in free agency. Brook Lopez this past year had more three-pointers made in the season than Kobe Bryant, more blocks in a season than Kevin Garnett. So I think Brook Lopez would be a guy who fit in great there. But the options that they have are kind of limited. You give up depth and you give up maybe picks or something to try and continue to build this roster. But even if you acquire slightly better talent, you're still saddled with 2 huge contracts, potentially 3 if you don't move Capella. Your depth is already in question. You're not a great defensive team. Chris Paul's getting hurt more and more. There just aren't a whole lot of options out there, and they kind of really backed themselves into this hole with the whole win now mentality. And so,
before we move on to the craziest shit happening out west, what's the % chance that Chris Paul does get traded?
I say a 25% chance. It's going to be hard to move his contract, and they probably want to keep him. They probably want to have faith in him. But, if there's an offer out there that makes sense for 2 different sides or, a 3-way deal potentially, it's going to get done, I think, especially with Daryl Morey, being kind of a go-getter, willing to pull the trigger kind of GM.
And actually, this makes a great transition. Before we get to the Lakers stuff, one more question. Today I heard somebody talk about Lonzo Ball, Chris Paul swap, but how they think that would be good for both players, good for both teams. How do you feel about that?
I wouldn't do it if I were the Lakers. It's been rumored that the Chicago Bulls are interested in giving their 7th pick for Lonzo Ball. You could include Lonzo Ball, and people are starting to report more and more about it now with the Brad Beal thing that I've been talking about on the show for months now. It seems like that he could be included in a deal for Brad Beal or for a different pick. I would hold on to him. There's no sense in trading a cheap guard that gets hurt for an old expensive guard who gets hurt. I wouldn't do it if I were the Lakers. I would hold on to it and look to move it for an all NBA caliber kind of player. And on top of that, there are rumors that Kyrie Irving is down to the Brooklyn Nets and the LA Lakers for his top 2 choices in free agency. So with the potential of landing Kyrie Irving, trading for Chris Paul, it doesn't make much sense to me.
All right. So now it's time to talk about a popular team in the history of basketball, Los Angeles Lakers. Yep. Won't say this a whole lot because basically we've already analyzed the organization for the past 8 months.
Yeah.
But came out yesterday, a long article by ESPN's Hackster Barnes, or Barnes Hackster. Hackster Barnes is his name. Very good article about the whole thing. It takes like half an hour to read because 4,000 words long.
Yeah, it's about 20 pages, I think.
But basically, there's a whole lot of dysfunction on the Lakers, obviously. Magic Johnson would reportedly harass employees. 2 employees of the Lakers had panic attacks. Rob Pelinka is absolutely crazy. He compared Kobe Bryant to like a messiah, basically. He said that him, Kobe, and Heath Ledger had a dinner after Heath Ledger on a date after Heath Ledger's death, which I can only assume he was just lying about completely, just not realizing what he was lying about exactly. So Fletcher, since we broke down the organization so much, before asking this question, just what are your thoughts on this?
Well, I think it kind of shows that, I for one have been holding reservation of hope for the Lakers. I like LeBron. I kind of root for the guy. And I've been having some degree of reservation of hope for the Lakers. And what this article basically shed light on is that things are a lot worse than what we kind of realized. And so, it's hard for me to. I'm sure the guy who made the report did a lot of interview. I mean, it's a very in-depth article, and I'm sure he knows much better than I do. But Magic Johnson, I've been following him on Instagram for a while. He's a very public figure, not much privacy to his life and what he does. I've seen him on trips and with his different employees, for the different venues that he's a part of, and then on vacation as well. Really take care of the employees. But at the same time, I could see that being kind of almost like a front in a way. Magic Johnson is rumored that, he even admitted to it. He wasn't as there that often. And that was a part of the deal that he struck with Jeannie Buss. But, him not being there, and then Rob Pelinka being the kind of weird kind of guy that he is, and maybe, the backstabbing that Magic talked about there, you could see how, frustrations and tensions can be pretty high in that Lakers organization. And so I could see some of these reports being true. So with that being said, I think it ultimately just shows that things are way worse for the Lakers than maybe we thought.
So I put this to you a question. Put these in order of likelihood. Rob Pelinka gets fired. Jeannie Buss steps down as runner of the Lakers. Or the Lakers are pressured into being sold. Since they are the last family-owned organization in the NBA, they're pressured into being sold by the league.
Yeah, so I think your first likely option is Rob Pelinka gets fired. I then think the second one is, the NBA pressures the Lakers into selling, and then the third one is Jeannie Buss steps down. She fought so hard to gain control of this organization. I just don't see her willingly stepping down and relinquishing all power that she has.
Yeah, I do agree with that, because basically she fired her brother to get this job. It's only after 3 years. She thinks she's doing the right thing, but only time can tell.
Yep.
And that leads us right into this week's First on the Fly. To this segment, we ask first 3 questions, hearing what they are, to answer them all on the fly. For our first question, going off that, do you think, in his career, LeBron James' biggest regret is not including an opt-out after every year of the Lakers' contract?
Well, I don't know the inner workings of how contracts work. I don't know if you're able to make an opt-out after every year like that. I always thought it was the end of the contract where your last year, you can have that potential opt-out. I think his bigger regret is not wanting to go, or is not going to the Clippers. I was big on that a year ago. You really look at the only contracts that they would need to come off of were Boban Marjanovic and then Avery Bradley, and they would have all this just freed up cap space to go out and sign a lot of different guys. They would have kept Danilo and Tobias Harris under contract and just kind of let them expire. They wound up trading Tobias and Boban and acquiring some younger talent. But before that, they even had 2 good draft picks. They had Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and Jerome Robinson. That could have been dealt when LeBron came there to acquire more talent even. So I think his bigger regret is not necessarily the contract structure of the Lakers, but just choosing the wrong team in LA.
All right. Our next question. I heard this news today. I thought it would be a good way to put it into the show. Anthony Davis had a sit-down lunch or dinner or meeting or something with GM David Griffin. What is the percent chance Anthony Davis is on the Pelicans opening day next season?
I get a 50% chance they really want to keep him. Gail Benson, the owner of the Pelicans, has said basically over her dead body while she traded him to the Lakers. So that really only leaves him one other option, and that's New York. I don't know what they're waiting for. You have the ultimate opportunity to rebuild this franchise. You trade Anthony Davis for a whole bunch from New York. You get Zion, you get R.J. Barrett. You get those two together. You get them in-house. You let them grow and build together in the NBA. You see what you can make out of the next 3 or 4 years with them, and hopefully they can, build some kind of market and stability in New Orleans and win. David Griffin's a smart guy. If he has those 2 young pieces as his cornerstones and is able to navigate free agency and the trade deadline, smartly, which he's capable of doing, he's shown that. I don't know, what they could be waiting for, because the thing I've talked about with Zion, you got a rookie guy who's still developing. You got AD who's 26, 27. You just got two different guys on two different trajectories and timelines. One's developing, one's in win now mode. It just doesn't make sense as far as the timing. Sure, they're both talents, and that'd be cool to see them together, but it just doesn't work out timing-wise. So I think that's why you need to move on. But I still give him a 50% chance because it looks like they want to keep him.
All right. Last question. Fletcher is not a man who bets very often, but he is a big fan in future bets.
No.
So Fletcher, from a betting perspective, if you could know one roster on the beginning of the season next year, what roster would that be?
Say the question again.
If you could know one roster at the start of the season next year, which one would it be? So, like, you could know if Kevin Durant left Golden State, went to New York. You can know where Kyrie went.
Yeah.
If AD got traded somewhere. Exactly.
It's got to be the Lakers. I think you're going to see the biggest shift in the Lakers, whether it be free agency or trades. I think they've run themselves so poorly that they're going to find themselves in a position where they're going to be moving those picks and those young players to just be able to improve the roster. And so I'm excited to see what players they go after. So for me, it's the Lakers, not even a question.
All right. And that has been Fletcher on the fly. So, Dippers, as you know, the playoffs are going on. There'll be a final start tomorrow, actually. But before we get to that, we'll talk about the conference finals. We'll start on the West. Warriors sweep the Blazers. Came out a few days later that the Blazers are going to give Damian Lillard a 4-year, $191 million contract. They have no real money for next season to go get anybody.
Yeah.
Fletcher, what do you think the Blazers can do going forward to still improve with their one player making 53% of the salary cap?
Yeah, you just got to hope that Rodney Hood can channel his inner, kind of game 3 for 82 games in an NBA playoffs of its entirety. That's your only hope, that he kind of really blossoms into a scorer that people kind of hoped he could ever become. And then, you bring Dame and CJ McCollum back and some of their, role players and, other just pieces like that. But really, they're just they're kind of like the Charlotte Hornets, only they have a much better roster. But in offering, Damian Lillard this huge contract, they're really in a damned if you do, damned if you don't kind of spot. So, not much wiggle room moving forward for them. And you've seen how a lack of wiggle room can really cost teams, long term, whether it be Oklahoma City, Houston, a lot of different ball clubs.
With Lillard making that much money, can you see a scenario in the future, depending on having this offseason, where they move offseason McCollum, try to free some cap space, and get more talent overall instead of just in one player?
Well, I tell you what, they kind of proved me wrong this year because they made it to the Western Conference Finals. They had a really good season. In my opinion, you basically kind of have the same player in McCollum and Damian Lillard. I've always thought, why not move off of McCollum? Maybe try to get some draft capital, but then also maybe get a different kind of player, whether it be a big or a wing or something like that, to find a different way to complement Damian Lillard, especially if you have a guy like Rodney Hood who appears, is competent enough in being a role player to Damian Lillard. But I think it kind of depends on his consistency.
All right, and now we're going to the other side, Eastern Conference Finals. Bucks were up 2-0, looking like they would dominate the series. Then the Raptors won 4 straight games. We talked about how it happened on Monday, but first I got to ask you, how did the Raptors make this comeback?
Well, at first they were just trying to, put a lot of different bodies on Giannis, and then eventually I think they stopped trying to outsmart themselves, and they said, Kawhi, like, we've seen you do it before for different, for us and for the Spurs. See if you can just go lock down Giannis. And, to my surprise, he definitely did. The depth and the length and the different scoring possibilities that the Bucks have really kind of shrank. The moment appeared to be too big for Giannis. It looked like he was playing, I don't know, a little bit on edge. He get in the lane like he did before, but he kind of alligator on it, kind of short-stroked a lot of things. You'd see him airball runners and stuff like that. That's not typical Giannis. I think the moment might have been a little too big for him. Kawhi, really kind of took over the series. So, but hats off to Toronto. They've got Fred VanVleet, Kyle Lowry, a very, very solid 1-2 punch for point guard, backup point guard. They've shown an ability to find this pretty well. They did it with Corey Joseph for a few years as well. But Fred VanVleet in that series shot 14 of 17 from three, so that was huge. Kawhi Leonard was huge, and their defense was big time too. Kyle Lowry stepped up, averaged like 25 and 5, I think, shooting 50% from the field and over 47% from three. So they turned themselves around. They stopped being a team that was scared to shoot and looking at Kawhi Leonard the whole time. You had a couple different guys really step up big for them, and then Kawhi offensively and defensively really just made things extremely difficult for the Bucks, and that was kind of what did it.
So looking at the Bucks now going to next season, they've had three contributors in Chris Middleton, Brook Lopez, and Malcolm Brogdon, making a combined $18 million this season.
Yeah, well, that's over.
I'm assuming Chris Middleton will opt out of his contracted player option, so they'll all be free agents. But before we talk about what they're going to bring them all back or what will happen, rank the three players in order of importance to the Bucks to bring them back.
Chris Middleton, is an all-star, so you got to put him one. Brook Lopez, that was an easy two for me, and I could see how some people, might argue, depending on that system and his, a fit against, certain matchups and teams on a nightly basis. I could see how people could make the argument for Brook Lopez being a number one. Being a 7-foot guy who had 72 games with at least one block, had more blocks in one season than Kevin Garnett, had more three-pointers in one season than Kobe Bryant. This is a guy who is built for today's NBA as far as a center position. You really couldn't ask for a better fit. He's transformed his game. He could be looking at potentially big money this offseason. But for me, it goes Chris Middleton, Brook Lopez, and then Malcolm Brogdon. Malcolm Brogdon had a 50-40-90 season, plays tremendous defense. But those two guys that I listed before him, one's an all-star and one could be, one of the best modern centers in the NBA this past season. So it's going to be tough to bring all those guys back. I really don't see it happening, but those are my 1, 2, 3 guys.
All right. So what do you think will happen with the Bucks this offseason? I read on Monday that they're prioritizing Brook Lopez. There's no telling right now how much money he'll garner on the open market. Chris Middleton will get close to max money. What do you think happens with those players in the Bucks?
I think they're definitely looking to bring Middleton back. I don't know if they're going to be able to bring Lopez back, to be honest with you. I think Lopez might go out and just try to get, a nice little payday, cash in on this season like he did, and then take his money and retire, depending on how he is at the end of this new contract that he signs. But I'm sure they're going to do all they can to bring those two back for sure. Malcolm Brogdon, I'm not entirely confident on what's going to happen there. I think he is kind of the last one on their radar. I'm sure they would love to have him back. I'm sure they want to bring this entire team back. But I think it goes Middleton, Lopez, and then they'll see what they can do with Malcolm Brogdon, because I believe that I think he's a restricted free agent anyway, and so they could just match kind of whatever offers out there for him anyway, if it really came down to it.
How do you think the Bucks would do next season? Do you think they can duplicate the 60-win season, one of the best seasons in NBA history, or do you think there'll be a little bit of regression?
Well, I think over the next year or two, you're going to see Giannis really kind of develop a consistent three-point shot over 30% from the postseason from three. So, that was encouraging to see. I think it kind of depends, I think Kyrie's leaving Boston. If Kawhi leaves Toronto to go out west, I think things could be wide open. Let's see how things shake out with the Knicks. They could land AD and KD and, see what happens there. Or Boston could land AD in a trade. It's just, there's a lot in the air, but I think consistently moving forward, I think Milwaukee, assuming Kawhi leaves, will be the team to kind of beat out East. But it really depends on free agency.
All right, so now move on to NBA Finals. I think we've waited 9 months for.
Yeah.
Warriors, Raptors. Raptors have home court advantage. KD has traveled with the team to Toronto, but he might not play in either game. I can't remember who it was. Somebody said on Cairo Show yesterday he don't think he'll play for the entire series.
Yeah.
So Fletcher, I picked the Warriors in 5 games. Break the thing down for us.
Well, I think it's gonna be Warriors in 6. I'm really hoping for Raptors in 7. I want the series to go on as long as possible. I'd love to see the Raptors win. it's. I first talked about this with Drake over the weekend about what I thought was going to happen during the finals, and the more I think about it, the better chance I see for the Raptors. If KD doesn't play, what's going to happen is for the majority of the game, I think they're going to put Kawhi Leonard on Andre Iguodala and say, hey, just kind of float around on defense and help when you can. And then in the fourth quarter, he'll be able to conserve some energy throughout the game. And whoever's hot, whether it be Steph or Clay or whoever, they'll say, all right, just go shut that one player down and then, do what you do on offense. And so I think that's kind of their best bet right now. If KD comes back, you're going to look at Kawhi guarding probably KD for the entire game. And, that's with all the pieces Golden State has, that's going to be tough to do, even with KD at, say, 75, 80%. The Warriors, though, they've been a team that's been kind of complacent all year. And you've seen that even at spots at the playoffs. I mean, they fell to 6 games with the Clippers in the first round. So things have been shaky. I think when Kevin Durant got hurt, that was like a huge wake-up call for them. Like, hey, everybody's got to be keyed in and ready to go. Otherwise, things could get really tough for them really fast. But I think, if they just had, home court advantage again and they were playing, a team that they're familiar with, not that they would be familiar with the Bucks either, but, they played the Cavaliers in the past 4 finals. If they had, let's say they just played the Cavs again, they had home court advantage, played the Cavs again, everything was ho-hum, business as usual. I could see them, slipping up and losing a game early. But I think the fact that they're on the road, they don't have home court advantage, they don't know Toronto like they know Cleveland. I think that they are, again, kind of a little keyed up on edge, a little locked in, ready to go. And I think them being so talented, them being locked in is just going to carry them throughout this series. I think you're going to see a big series out of Steph, too, especially if there's no KD.
Yep. That is a good point. This will be the first time they've been in the finals where they haven't faced Cleveland.
Yep.
It's almost like Cleveland lost something really, really good.
Yeah, I know.
So you said Warriors in 6?
Yeah. I'm thinking Warriors in 6, and I'm kind of thinking that this injury with KD is more serious. When the timetable first came out, he was listed at 3 to 6 weeks, and I think today or tomorrow, I can't remember. One day this week, though, will be the 3-week mark from his initial injury date, and so he's still not ready to go. I hope it's not closer to 6 weeks. I hope it's closer to maybe 4 or 5. But, if you're Kevin Durant and this thing gets 2-0, 3-0, 3-1, something like that, is it really even worth it to try to come back and play? Because what if you re-injure yourself and that hampers you for the next 2 or 3 years and you're looking to, continue to build your legacy and brand in New York or for the Clippers or wherever the case may be. So Kevin Durant and the Warriors kind of have business decisions to make, seeing as how the series goes. But I hope Kevin Durant makes it back, but we'll see either way.
Oh, no, I think he'll definitely play if he can, because Kevin Durant is not going to let the Warriors win NBA Finals and then go to the parade with that team and the White House with that team. There's no way. If he can play, I believe that no matter how much he could re-injure himself, he will play in that game.
Yeah, it might be a pride or an ego thing step in more than anything.
Yeah. But yeah, back to say about the timetable thing. I think 2 weeks from today or tomorrow is Game 6.
Yes.
7 of the finals.
I believe so.
So that would be 5 weeks since his injury. So yeah, if it is the worst possible thing, he would still be injured. But gotta think he'd play.
He might. Yeah.
You think Boogie plays?
I heard today that he's still kind of a no-go early in this series as well. So maybe in a return home to Oracle, you might see spot minutes for Boogie. But again, it's kind of a wait-and-see kind of thing.
All right. Well, this has been another volume of Hysteria. Thank you all for listening. Enjoy the NBA Finals. This is all Christmas now. From Leighton, from Fletcher. As always, Dippers, stay saucy.